solution for Brexit and go ahead with a new business and be always positive. Here all the guys, and at the back we got the chef Andrea Cerini, which is gonna prepare something for you later on. I'm gonna introduce. Guys, all yours. So. Yes.
Sorry, I thought we were going to have the cooking exhibition first, but okay, we can climb straight in. My name's Rob Brumby, I'm a broadcast journalist of many years, and thank you first of all for the Italian Chamber of Commerce and Industry for this invite to chair what promises to be a really interesting session. It's almost 10 months now since Britain's transition out of the European Union. It felt like, for many of us, like a cliff edge. It certainly felt like that for many of the people on this panel, I'm sure, at the time. So 10 months on, it's a good chance to take stock, see what impact it's had on our trading and cultural relationships, and where Italy is concerned, of course, trade and culture are always very closely entwined. It is in many ways food and drink, Italian soft power, I always think, in a certain way. Without more ado, let me introduce our panel. First of all, we have Matteo Ferrio on the left here, Senior Store Manager with Italy UK, a major food emporium. You describe yourself as a experiential retailer. We'll be hearing a little bit more about that in a minute. To my left immediately, Boris Carozzi, a buyer for Lupa Foods, a major food importer. We'll be hearing about your sector in some detail soon. Imports, of course, would be very problematic without logistics. Impossible, in fact. So we have here Giorgio Poggio of Aprile, major logistics and transportation company. If one sector was in the thick of Brexit, I guess, Giorgio, it was yours. And finally, to complete our panel on the right, we have Jonathan James, regional merchandiser with the Wine Society, a wine club of some 175,000 members, and you've been doing wine directly to customers for 145 years, and some of it this year, I would add. Let me start first of all with Matteo, really. Matteo, you were just microphone, of course. You claim of your company, you cook what you sell what you cook. A chance to eat, shop, cook and learn about Italian culture all under one roof. And yet you had to take very big decisions when it was unclear whether we were going to have a hard Brexit, a soft Brexit, second referendum, no Brexit. In the end, you went ahead and launched your big 25 million investment in Bishopsgate at a time of pandemic. What was that like? And was it worth it?
Ciao everyone. Yes, for sure was a very challenge to decide when we open, because the store was ready at the beginning of this year, in basically January, and we need to decide to open during a pandemic and also the Brexit, but basically in the middle of the pandemic, and yeah, it was a very big challenge because the store is very big. Is on 2 floors, more than 4,000 square meter, and the biggest challenge was the pandemic, because normally when we open a site, a store, we have more than 50 people come to all other store to help us during the opening. So every department, every counter, we have some people that maybe work with the company since 10 years, 5 years to train all the new staff, and also all the people that we hire for our store. Normally we send to other store in US, in Italy, to learn what Italy is, our concept, and take the knowledge that we have.
Can we discuss your staff issues in a minute? Because I want to ask you another one. One of your chief executives said the status of London was such that it far outstripped the risks of Brexit. Is that how you saw it when you were making that decision?
No, because basically we decided to open this store 4 years ago, because it's a long process to start to sign the deal with the landlord, to design the store, to build the store. So it's more it's like 2 years on the construction site. So when we decide to open in London, no one speak about Brexit, or was very far away the Brexit, but at the moment, yes, for sure, it's more difficult to manage all the supply chain, the import of the goods, but for our company that now we have store in more than 10 different countries around the world, we have a little bit of knowledge to import products in US, in Japan, so we have some office that normally deal with this all this paper basically, and all the rules. So for sure it's a little more difficult than before, but at the moment we have more paper, more job, and it's more expensive, but we don't have the issue of the products at the moment.
Let's pick up some of those themes in a moment. Can I turn to you, Boris? Lupa Foods, major food importer. What's the impact been for you? We hear a lot about lead times being destroyed, put back, 15 days becoming 45 days, lots more paperwork. Talk us through it, what it's been like for you at the sharp end.
Yeah, basically, in a nutshell, the main impact is lead time, of course, from 20 days to 30 to 35, even 40 sometimes.
Is that sustainable?
It is what it is at the moment. So, yeah, I mean, from a company point of view, we had to keep in mind that we need to order before than what we usually used to do. And also we had to increase our stock holding capacity in the warehouse.
That's costly.
Yes, because you've got stock on the floor. To take into account any logistic delays, any issue with paperwork. Because, for example, for some products before we didn't need to apply for licenses, like for example rice, and now we have to. So not only logistic issues and delays and paperwork, also the additional lead time for applying for a license, getting the license approved, submitting the license, and then getting the goods into your store.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, and a lot of companies, because of this, had to hire additional people into their team to look after paperwork.
How many? Because I read one account, it was really only one or two, and you start thinking, well, is that so bad really? That sounds copable.
I would say on average, at least one extra person to two.
Is that a major cost to you? I'm not quite sure how that's.
Well, if you take, just roughly speaking, if you take an average wage of 35, 40, let's say, and if you have two people, it's 70,000 extra. You know, so it's costly. Yeah. One of the examples that I can share very briefly with you, when I was in seafood before coming to Lupa, when we had to import a fresh container of seafood, there was no paperwork involved, and now it's 70 pages per container. And you can imagine the impact that it has on companies,
it's really tricky,
manpower and paperwork management as well.
Is there a problem with maintaining standards as well when Britain is now outside the European Union, knowing what you're importing, etc., verifying what's there?
Yeah, you have to organize yourself in a certain way where you have record of all the licenses you have applied for, all the rejected licenses, all the successful licenses, and any communication about delays and stuff, it has all to be coordinated.
There are, of course, potential benefits. You mentioned seafood. We've done a number of stories about oyster fishermen who can't get their products to Europe. I mean, is there any way you can capitalize on the stuff that's not going abroad if you want it here?
Yeah, of course. In every risk, there is an opportunity. So it's up to the companies to capitalize on that.
Okay, well, we'll pick up some of those as well. If I can turn now to Giorgio, as we said, there is quick passage of a microphone. As we said, there's no trade at all without logistics, really. So you're at the sharp end of all this. We hear and read a lot about the 100,000 shortage in HGV drivers, which has caused a big problem. I've witnessed it myself many times now. 74% of Brits apparently do now believe that this is caused by Brexit, but some would say no, it's just as much COVID. How do you see it?
The truth is that it's structural situation. It's a structural situation all Europe. If you count all the European countries, we are talking about 400,000 drivers missing. The life of a driver is miserable. So we need to reinvent the way we do the driver. We need to find a way to attract young talent to this job. In this moment, it's not like that. In this moment, the only solution is to find a way to get drivers. So we have retailers that are trying to get drivers from other jobs.
Refuse trucks are apparently being poached. The drivers of refuse trucks to come and work for.
There is no reason to come to England to do the driver if already in Europe there are missing drivers. The average in UK, the average age of a driver is 55 years old. It means that in the next 5 years we'll be completely without drivers. It's a structural issue. It's not only in Europe, it's also in the United States. 60,000 drivers missing in the United States. I think that in this moment, after the COVID, after the lockdown, we are living from logistic point of view in a perfect storm. That's exactly a perfect storm where everything that could go wrong is going there, in that direction. And it will probably need another 18 months, to my knowledge, to recover from this situation and come back to a sort of normality, but yet a lot of initiatives has to be taken. Driver is one of them.
And a lot of companies, of course, stockpiled ahead of the transition ending to make sure they had stocks. That must have changed your business platform as well.
Yes, stocks is an issue today because if yesterday the rotation was faster, today is lower, and then you have to increase your safety stock. Increasing your safety stock, you are increasing also your costs, and you reduce your cash flow.
What do you make of the government's offer of short-term visas to encourage more drivers? It seems to be very late and very little.
Again,
an obsession with Christmas as well, just having it done for Christmas.
That's right, but as I said, is a structural problem. I believe that when the government says also in Europe there is the same problem, is right. Finding drivers abroad is not the solution. It's how to make sure that the British people, the young British people will love to do this job. That's the question, and it's not only an English question, it's a world question.
And on paperwork and bureaucracy, I mean, you've had that tenfold, haven't you really?
Brexit is just like when you are in a highway and from one moment to another you decide to put a barrier to a barrier to pay the toll, and then you have a queue automatically. If you live in Europe, in UK it's less frequent, but that's how it works. So it's just to organize yourself, understand what kind of paper you need, understand that the UK is not anymore part of Europe, it's just like China. When you're shipping to China, you have to do some works, and when you're importing in China from Europe, you have to do some works. The same in UK. A lot of company decide to do the works in-house. We, as a company, as Aprile, we do the job for our customers. So basically, we are taking this burden from them.
Now, there's a lot of talk about the importance of cabotage, this practice of European drivers being able to pick up materials, ferry them, pick up other loads and take them back. That's got so much more complicated.
That's the solution, in my opinion. We need to understand in Europe that we must spend money on our rail system, make sure that we are CO2 efficient, first of all, try to save this planet, at least for our future generation. And secondly, we need to understand that the job for a driver to leave the home 4 o'clock today and come back after a month is not workable anymore. So we need to find a way that the drivers does only short leg. And the answer is can be the cabotage, the train, can be all these kind of things.
Georgia. We'll leave that there for a moment. Can I now bring in Jonathan James? Jonathan, cheer us all up. I mean, you've had quite a good crisis on the whole, haven't you? Essentially, I understand that with COVID and people staying at home, there's been quite a lot more of us enjoying your products at home.
Unfortunately, what is devastating for a lot of people has been a bit of a boon for people who don't do the on-trade. So our existing customers bought about 14% more than they used to. Obviously, they're drinking less at restaurants. We also grew from 146,000 members to 175,000 members. So a lot more people wanted our wine and they bought more of it when they could. So yeah, it's not been too bad for us.
Can I cut to the chase with a bit of politics, Jonathan? Because one of the things the Brexiteers said in the run-up to the referendum is, oh yes, the French will want to sell their cheese, the Italians their Prosecco, it'll be fine, they'll want to do the best possible deal. Are you seeing frictionless trade?
No. So we deal with most countries that produce wine, we deal with them at some point. I personally look after Italy, the USA, Champagne. Different areas struggle differently, and we deal with a lot of suppliers. We pride ourselves on doing a lot of suppliers who are really, really small. We might be the only people they export to outside of their own country. And the sentiment has been in general that it is a problem that we've brought upon ourselves, and subsequently we've had to do quite a lot of work to solve the logistical issues that they might have, help them with the paperwork, because why would they need to learn it? They only send it to us, it's our problem. So a lot of our effort has been in training, in encouraging that sort of relationship. Thankfully, a lot of our suppliers have been with us for so long. We weren't going to lose them.
Jonathan, you had also one very intriguing story I heard. In the early days after the transition, apparently certain parcel carriers taking your products into Northern Ireland discovered that wine was a restricted substance and they were not allowed to carry it. How on earth did you get around that?
Yeah, literally overnight with no warning, alcohol became a prohibited substance for parcel carriers in Northern Ireland. And of course we have Northern Irish members. So unfortunately, in a very short term, we had to stop delivering to them. Thankfully, with the Northern Ireland Protocol being relaxed in about March, we were able to re-establish sending things to them, but there is a lot of extra paperwork we have to do for the duty implications. We have to pay, but we have to keep a record so that we can kind of get the money back, etc. So it's frictionless in the sense we can get it there, but it's not frictionless in the sense there's a lot of paperwork to do in between.
Yeah, and if I can just come back to you, Giorgio, briefly for a second. I mean, your sector is also exposed to Northern Ireland and the problems. Just for the audience to fill in a bit of background, of course, Northern Ireland essentially remained within the customs union. It is in de facto really part of the single market still, all designed to avoid a border on the island of Ireland. As such, we have one now in the Irish Sea. Problematic for all of us.
Well, it's more about in my opinion, more the paperwork especially from Europe to Ireland, which is easier.
Yeah.
It's more about the availability of the space, which is part of the perfect storm I described before. So it's very difficult to find the space to go to Northern Ireland because what's happened, it has become more difficult to move from UK to Northern Ireland. So the only way to move cargo to Northern Ireland and to Ireland is by sea. And there is a limited space. So the demand increased 3 times with the limited capacity, so it's difficult to, the supply chain is facing some challenging, especially in lead time and space.
At your level in business, how much attention do you give to what's happening in the political sphere on all this? Because I'm bearing in mind the fact that the government said only this week the European Court of Justice can have no role whatsoever in UK affairs, and at the moment it does in Northern Ireland. Are you looking at that in great detail, or just taking the big picture when you make your decisions?
Well, we are looking in details and also check have an idea of the great picture, because at the end of the day we need to set the strategy for the next years, and at the moment we are navigating a site, so we are looking what is going to happen tomorrow in order to make our move and support our customer in the best manner.
Good luck with that. If I can just pass the microphone back to Boris quickly. Are you at all being exposed to the Northern Ireland problem? Is that a major concern for you?
No, Not really.
Not at all.
Not really for us, no.
Can I ask you about another factor then? There's a lot of concern now in general about Britain being outside of the geographical designation area. There's a concern about standards as we go forward, fake products, etc. Not just fake products, but what I would call look-alike products,
Yeah.
things that look like they're the same thing. We're already seeing from Greece Greek-style cheese appearing in shops. I'm sure from Italian perspectives you have equal concerns. Where do we go with all this? It must be very worrying for you trying to be sure you're getting genuine products into the country for your...
You're right, that's a very, very true statement. However, I can say that in Lupa Food we have a very, very professional technical team, very high standard, probably the best technical team I've ever worked with. So we work very closely with our tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers, let's say, and before there is a problem, well, it will never happen in our case because we, for example, there was a rumor of Chinese tomato sold as Italian. Immediately there was an email sent out from our technical team. There is this rumor. We called our suppliers. We have done a full investigation all the way back to the supply chain. So we are always like a step ahead, at Lupa at least, as far as I'm concerned.
And for Italy, in many countries, of course, brand is everything, isn't it? As I said, it's Italian soft power, really.
Yeah. And we have a list of products that are really likely, very highly likely to be counterfeited. So like Sicilian lemon that is not from Sicily and is sold at a higher price. So we are aware and we are like a step ahead.
Matteo, if I could pass the mic to you for a second. I mean, this must concern you greatly because you're all about the overall experience, that we learn about your culture whilst we eat, whilst we drink, whilst we breathe the Italian air, if you like. How does that go down with you, this concern about the faking of products that could take place now and geographical designation? It must be a real worry.
Yes, basically this is one of the mission of Italy, no? Go around the world and try to explain all the biodiversity that we have in Italy and try to sell, explain, tell about the real Parmigiano Reggiano and not the Parmesan. So one of our goals, especially outside Italy, no? Because in the store that we have in Italy country is more simple. When we go in US, here in UK, in London, one of our mission is work with all the consortium like Parmigiano Reggiano, can be Grana Padano, or also on the wine section, in every single department to try to keep the real Italian products and explain why this type of Italian product is better than Parmesan. And so we have a school, for example, no? Because Italy is on the 3 pillars. Eat, for sure, because we have a restaurant, all the quick service, shop, all the market, more than 2,500 wine, more than 5,000 products, but also the school, because for us is very important, especially outside Italy, to explain the biodiversity and why maybe one olive oil is different to another olive oil, or why the prosciutto di Parma come from Parma is different from the San Daniele, that at the end is the same pieces of the animal, but in different region with different weather is different, and we have this biodiversity. So for us it's very, very important to explain the real Italian knowledge on the food.
One worry I have is the adaptability of consumers. I mean, you're at the top end of the market, high quality products, etc., the whole experience. But I noticed how we all changed during Brexit, during lockdown. We go to the supermarket shelves, there'll be a different range of products there, and little by little, unless you're in the habit of choosing very specifically, we start to forget what was there. Are you concerned that in the end, the British consumer may well not recognize the difference? It's a big problem in selling your products.
Yes, I think it's not a problem, but it's a challenge for us, and we like the challenge. And for us, it's a challenge and not a problem to explain all the diversity of the products that we have. So we try every day with our guys in the store to explain everything to our customers. So the difference between Italy and normal supermarket, inside our store you find a lot of sign that we try to explain better everything.
You raised in your first contribution this whole thing about staff and training. I think at one point you were expecting to recruit a lot more, but I think 20 to 30% were expected originally to be Italians. Are you finding it difficult to get the staff, as you hinted you were? And if so, what are you doing? Are you training Brits to understand this stuff, or is that a bit of a thankless task?
Yeah, for sure was and is one of the best challenge now is hire people. So of course we have basically now one restaurant that we open only Friday, that is our premium restaurant that is there. We open only the bar with 40 covers. We have other 130 covers that we need and we want to open, but we miss staff. So now we are 50 person under staff, and we continue to hire, but yeah, was one and is the most difficult challenge.
The end of free movement is a massive challenge.
Yeah,
for you,
exactly. Keep person from Italy, staff from our store in Italy or Munich or US is difficult.
There are quite a lot of Italians already here, though, aren't there? Is that a big enough pool?
Yes, we have a lot of Italians that work with us that they already are here in London, but yeah, it's difficult to find people, not only Italian, but in general find chef. Basically now the most challenge is the back of the house, so the chef.
Boris, if I could come back to you one more time. Obviously, the other big thing beyond Brexit and COVID that's coming up is the big climate summit. One of the concerns with all this, and for an importer you'll probably have a better sense of this than I will, is the fact that we are now seeing products on our shelves from all over the world that used to just come from France, Spain, Italy, etc. Grapes from places you didn't even know they had vines, basically, and we've seen it all the time. Is this a concern for you, or is it something you would just adapt to?
No, it's something that we were expecting anyway, so you just adapt to it. Sustainability is an important word nowadays, and especially in supply chain. Giorgio can also contribute. There are a lot of haulier companies that are introducing low emission vehicles. So when we do tenders, for example, on logistics, we are also asking a lot of sustainability related questions to our logistic haulier partners. And even when we plan our products routing into our warehouse, we try to plan our pickups in a way to reduce carbon emission, and consolidating lorries even with our competitors if we need to reduce emissions.
But if people start buying things from the other side of the planet that used to come from Italy or France or Spain or whatever, I mean, that is ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, you start feeling a bit silly in the supermarket buying something you know is available just across the water.
Yeah.
Air miles.
Yeah.
Nightmare.
It is what it is now.
All right, we've got about 5 minutes left. If we can just go round one more time, maybe makes sense to pass the microphone back to the bottom end to bring Jonathan back in whilst he's as a food and drinks man having a drink.
Arrives, there we are.
Yeah. Just to wrap up now, really, we've got about 5 minutes to conclude the session. How do you feel going forward? I mean, this is a long trading relationship with Europe, with Italy, obviously, very important to both sides and culture, and yet really troubled at the moment. Looking forward, are we over the problems, or is this a long-term problem?
I'm closest to logistics in that respect. I don't think we're over the hill yet. I'm sure Giorgio will come. They do a fantastic job, whether we do or not. In terms of cost, at some point during the conversation about Brexit and wine, for example, there was talks about £1.50 on a bottle. Thankfully, the VI1 form has been dropped to something that was going to be introduced. Now it's going to cost us a lot of money, but the paperwork costs do cause us an issue. If you just ask me, I suspect it's going to add some cost to bottles of wine, but not as much as was suggested initially. There are some monetary opportunities we've found going forward with the flurry of paperwork. We have KPMG having a look through our customs declarations. where everything was so very new, a lot of boxes weren't ticked correctly, so you get about 9p back for every one of those per bottle. Every one of those you got wrong. So we reckon we've got about 15 grand left to come back through that. So it's not over. It's going to carry on. The cost to us, we'll have to wait and see.
Thank you. If you could just pass the microphone to Giorgio. I'm going to misquote a famous phrase in the English language: Brexit is for life, not just for Christmas. And the government behaves as if all these logistics problems, it's just about getting your presents at Christmas. This is going to go on for years.
Yeah. No,
how do you deal with that?
No, the Brexit is nothing. I mean, it's the world, as I said, is a perfect storm in the world. So Brexit is just a small part of the challenge. It's just a new barrier, a new customs barrier in the supply chain. It's not a big deal. The big deal is that we have an issue on global scale that's affecting the whole world in the replenishment and the supply chain. And it will take, as I said, 18 months to recover. So
Or do you see there will be a recovery?
It will be for sure. There are elements that tells us that the situation will go back on track, and it will take time. It's just like the world during the shutdown, switch off the light, and we cannot believe that after 6 months of shutdown we can switch on the light and everything is again the same. Because when we all switch on the light, we ask energy, all of us at the same time, and the supply of the energy, in my metaphor, is the logistics. So we need to, we are struggling to support this kind of request. Things will change, will take 18 months, so we need to be patient.
Very briefly, I'm going to pass the microphone on now. Boris, just to wrap up with you two on this side very briefly. Final words, is it going to be solved soon or not?
No, it's an ongoing situation at the moment. We just need to work more closely than before with our suppliers and supply chain partners.
I'm going to keep it brief there because Matteo wants a final word as well. We all love your products. Is it going to get better?
Yes, for sure. So we work every day to have more products, more selection, and so we try to increase our selection every day.
I'd love to keep this conversation going, but sadly we've got even more exciting things to come. So Matteo, Giorgio, Boris and Jonathan, thank you very much for your time. And thank you for coming.